Check, check, 1, 2.
Can you believe it? It's football. I've been watching it for 40 years.
Are you kidding me?
You're listening to Winning Cures Everything.
Game day, baby. Wake up or get out.
Here's your host,
A confident young man, a superb athlete.
Gary Seegers.
Welcome in, Winning Cures Everything. Let's turn this down a little bit. This is the Week 4 college football reaction and recap show. And I missed a lot last night. I'm going to go ahead and be brutally honest with all of you. I was at the Steve Martin and Martin Short show at the Orpheum in Memphis last night, so I tried to catch up on as much as humanly possible last evening. Once I got home, I got up early this morning. I know that I'm going to have missed some things having not watched the majority of these things live, right? So jump in the chat, help me out with all of this. We have not put together the most unlikely wins, although Bill Conley put together a good list over on Twitter of the most unlikely wins. Let's go on and hit that before I tell you all about the show, etc., etc. But yeah, this is it was another bonkers week. You know, it looked like it might be, maybe a sleepy Saturday, something along those lines. Nope, not a sleepy Saturday at all. We had interesting things happen over and over and over again. But man, you want to talk about just crazy ending after crazy ending. It was bonkers, to say the least. Here we go. All right, the most unlikely wins. Let's go on and flip this over. And I might need to turn on another light so you can actually see me here. Texas Tech with a 2.4% post-game win expectancy over Texas. That's bonkers. Won in overtime. Auburn, 9% over Missouri. Navy, only 20% over ECU. There's Ryan jumping in. Southern Miss over Tulane, most certainly. Now, that one was not an unlikely win. Southern Miss, I believe, just handled that game. But that's one that I gave out on Winning Cures. Way to go, Kansas State. Jesse jumps in. Yes. A&M over Arkansas was 33%. UCF over Georgia Tech was only 31%. Yeah, the stats on that were really weird. Really weird. And then, of course, Clemson over Wake was only 31%. UNLV, I felt like they kind of dominated that game a little bit, but yet their stats show it was only a 34% win expectancy. Ohio over Fordham, Purdue over FAU was 42%. But, of course, with Aiden O'Connell having his issue, that one's gonna be a little weird anyway. So it was nonsense. It was a weird week. It is what it is. So let's go ahead and give you the details. The show is brought to you. It's powered by BetUS, America's premier online sportsbook every single time out. By the way, this is episode 1001 of Winning Cures Everything. I am excited about it. I am pumped about it because that means that I've been doing this for a really, really long time. But I'm excited because, man, we finally got some teams that we thought might be a little bit overrated. Yeah, they showed exactly why we thought that. Some other teams that we didn't know whether or not they were any good finally showed up. Kansas State. Southern Miss finally got their win over Tulane. Tulane, of course, with that win last week over Kansas State. I mean, that win last week was just nuts to me because it felt so out of place. And yet, here we go, right? You finally see this week exactly what happened. So we have got, by the way, I'm a little later on the show today, obviously. Steve Martin Short last night, late evening. I was not on Bill Street, what is it, Main Street, downtown for a little while. Got home, stayed up until 2:30 in the morning, trying to get caught up on what I missed as far as stats, etc. And then got up early this morning. So I am lacking in sleep. I do have my coffee, though, so we are good to roll. And with that, we will start off with game number 1 here. And let's dive in. The weirdest, most ridiculous stat of the evening. Oh, by the way, before I even write down the time, before I do anything like that, I tweeted out this morning. If you missed it, you can go back and check it. But closing line value matters. It's why getting your bets in at the earliest possible time matters. I bet Arkansas plus 2.5. on Sunday. I gave it out on the show on Tuesday or Wednesday, and it was +2 at that point. It was a push, right? It was a push on the show. It was a win for me just in my actual gambling. As far as Duke goes against Kansas, I bet Duke +9. By the time we had the show on Tuesday, it was already down to 7.5. So I still gave it out at 7.5. I thought it still had a good chance of hitting, but Duke loses the game by 8. So my bet wins, but what I gave out on the show lost. So my actual bets went 5-2 this week, but on the show, it was 3-1. There is just a hair of a difference in some of these games, right? It's nicer when you get, like, you bet Kansas State +13 and then they just went outright, right? I mean, you're talking about a 20-point difference there. So those are nice, and we get those every now and then. But for the most part, you guys know these sports books know exactly what's going on. They just do. They have been trained to do this forever and ever and ever. So let's kick it off. Let's do this, and we will roll Texas A&M 23, Arkansas 21, and goodness gracious, you look at the total yards, you look at the stats, the rushing yards. Arkansas had 244 rushing yards. I mean, they averaged 4.5 yards per rush. Now, A&M on the other side averaged 5.6 yards per rush. A&M put up 343 yards of offense. Jimbo had a plan in this game. Now, I went back and watched the majority of this, but some of what we saw in this game was just crazy stuff happening at the most ridiculous times. For example, you go over to the game drives. Right, we'll do play-by-play. But this fumble return touchdown, where Arkansas was up 14-13, and they were driving. They had 12 plays, 72 yards on this. They drove all the way down to the A&M 3, and then an 82-yard fumble return for Texas A&M. I mean, just bananas. Like, I just do not understand. And of course, it was a third play. In the second half, A&M goes up 23-14 on a field goal, and then you finally get Arkansas a 13-play, 74-yard drive that they finally finished. And you finally get an A&M missed field goal. You get an Arkansas missed field goal, and that's how the game ends. Because it's not like this was some super long field goal. This thing bounced off the right upright, off the top of the right upright, and fell forward instead of backwards. So that's how we end up losing the game. Arkansas had opportunity after opportunity in this spot and just could not get it done. Cheers to Texas A&M, because after that loss to App State, with the way that the offense looked, I mean, it continued to look that bad against Miami last week. If they had continued to play like that, yeah, they'd be in a whole mess of trouble. But this may have saved their recruiting class for next year. It might have saved their current recruiting class. There's all kind of things that it saved by winning this ball game. And Arkansas, first loss of the year. They are not going to be in the top 10 this week, but Arkansas has Alabama this week. A&M has Alabama in 2 weeks. So, interesting spots for both of those teams. But yes, this was just bananas. If you look at the post-game win expectancy, the win probability, how much it shifted right there, I mean, it's just crazy. Just crazy. And you can see on the expected points, the play right there where it shifts and it goes all the way down. Yeah, that is, of course, the fumble return for the touchdown. You can absolutely see it. So, yeah, when you look at this, Arkansas had more plays per drive. They had more yards per drive. They got 67% of the available yards. It was nuts because I felt like Arkansas should have won that football game. And yet, here we are. Here we are. Sometimes you don't always win. And that is the way it goes when you play in tight, contested ball games. Cheers to A&M, though. I mean, this was huge for them. Absolutely huge for them. This game right here could be the difference between winning, 9 or 10 games and barely scraping by to make it to a bowl game. That's how big that game was. Arkansas, I think, on the other hand, a good showing. Still got a lot to work with going forward. But yeah, first loss of the season is always going to sting. Moving along, Tennessee and Florida. Tennessee 38, Florida 33. And, geez, boy, the Vols really wanted to make this one a ball game, didn't they? Florida, they went up 38 to, I want to say, 21. I tried to watch the majority of this one. Anthony Richardson, by the way. Here, let's pull up these stats. 24 out of 44 for 453 yards with 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. Like, he had not thrown a single passing touchdown all year. And then he comes in and throws 453 yards. He ran 17 times for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, he took over the game on offense for the Gators. I mean, it was just, it was not expected. I will say that. It was definitely not expected what he ended up putting up. But this was such a strange game. Yeah, 38-21. But then Florida marches right back down the field in 10 plays, 78 yards in 3 minutes. Tennessee turns the ball over on downs. Florida comes back, scores another touchdown. 7 plays, 71 yards in less than a minute. And they get the ball back, like on an onside kick with 17 seconds left. And they're down at the Tennessee 39 with a chance to win the game. Like, who could have possibly seen that coming? The stats would have not told you that this would have been likely at all, at least the raw stats on the season. But Billy Napier, props to him for having a plan in place to be able to combat this. I thought that they were going to slow this thing down. Like, I thought they were going to do everything that they could to slow it down, and they really did in the first half, right? Because it was 17-14 at the half, and that was only because Tennessee scored at the very end of the half. But when you look at it, I mean, as far as team stats go, yeah, Florida held onto the ball for 35 minutes. They ran pretty well, 42 times here. But Tennessee did the same thing. They were just a lot faster. This was a strange game. I mean, Florida outgained Tennessee 594 to 576. just bonkers. Tennessee, a lot of standard down success, especially since they only had 9 third downs on the day. Florida was 7 out of 15 on third down. I mean, just crazy. So I think actually in this game, both teams come out feeling pretty good. And you guys that are in the chat, of course, I mean, jump in with stuff that I have missed. I mean, like I said, I did not get to see everything live yesterday. But I wish I had, because my gosh, I watched the end of this game, and I watched the majority of it live. But some of these other ones, I will not have. So, but yeah, props to Florida, props to Tennessee. Florida, I know, is 2-2, but your losses are to Kentucky and Tennessee. Those are rough. Florida's had a really difficult schedule outside of USF, which, I mean, they made difficult on themselves, but regardless. In Tennessee, I mean, you're sitting at 4-0. You got LSU. You got Alabama coming up. Anything's possible, right? It's the KG thing. Anything is possible. Let's see. All right, moving along. Kansas State, 41. Oklahoma, 34. I am shocked at this one. I look at this and I cannot figure out for the life of me. Now, I will tell you, I'll tell you what happened here. Kansas State was looking ahead to this Oklahoma game, and that's why they lost to Tulane last week. That's in my head. That is exactly what went on here. Kleiman and Colin Klein and that bunch were geared up for Oklahoma because they thought that they could just walk in and get a win over Tulane, and that turned out not to be the case because it turns out Kansas State is not overly talented. So, yeah, you're not going to be able to do that all the time. Adrian Martinez in this game, 21 out of 34 passing. Like, that is, I would have never guessed in a million years that would have come out of Adrian Martinez. Regardless, 21 out of 34 passing, 234 yards, 1 touchdown here. 21 rushes for 148 yards, and then Deuce Vaughn, 25 for 116. This is against the Brent Venables defense. Kansas State put up 509 total yards. They held the ball for 35 minutes. They were extremely successful. Just unbelievably successful. 8 out of 17 on third down, 2 out of 2 on fourth down. They had 6.1 yards per play. Now, Oklahoma was able to put up a lot of yards. You know, they put up 550 themselves, 330 of it through the air. They were able to run for 220. But this game, like, Kansas State kind of did whatever they wanted to. They were able to get this win, and that's 3 out of 4 for Kansas State over Oklahoma. Now, I understand that 2 of those were against Lincoln Riley. I get that. But Chris Kleiman figured out as soon as he got to the Big 12, okay, that's the team that we got to beat. That's the ones that we got to focus on. Nothing else matters if we don't beat them. So we got to beat them. And that's what they've done. I mean, just a fascinating football game. No turnovers. Like, this was not something that Oklahoma just fumbled away. It was not some fluke. It was not, any of that. Dylan Gabriel, 26 out of 39, 4 touchdowns, 330 yards. I mean, he put up bonkers numbers. Eric Gray, 16 carries for 114. Like, this is just a strange situation because you would look at these two teams and you think that Oklahoma is just the significantly more talented team. And it turns out maybe they're not. I mean, maybe they're not at all. You could see where this thing shifted. I mean, just right in the middle of the game, you go back and look at the play-by-play data, and you can tell. I mean, Kansas State came out early, and they went up 14-0. Oklahoma roaring back 14-14. Kansas State 21-14, and then it's 24-17 at the half. Like it was just a back and forth game, and Kansas State traded blows. Kansas State traded blows with Oklahoma all night long. And Adrian Martinez was the hero. Like, this is not a common thing. We saw that at Nebraska over and over and over again. I can't stress how big Kansas State, you look at what they've got coming up now. Now, of course, we don't know which effort we're going to get week in and week out because you see they lost at home to Tulane, then go on the road and win at Oklahoma. But now you got Texas Tech this week. 11 a.m. kickoff. It's at home. Texas Tech just beat Texas. After that, you got Iowa State. You got at TCU. You got Oklahoma State. You got this is, I will tell you, what I learned yesterday is that in the Big 12, anything can happen this year. There's no predicting this because I think all of these teams are very, very equal. It's going to be strange. A very strange season in the Big 12 for sure, because I was floored that Kansas State was able to win that game. I thought maybe they could cover the 13. I didn't think they could win. And that's what really shocked me on that one. Really shocked me. Let's talk about Clemson. Clemson 51, Wake Forest 45. Now, I watched this game and could not, for the life of me, understand how Wake Forest was having success. And I texted Parker, and Parker explained it very simply to me. He told me that Wake Forest has NFL wide receivers. And that's exactly what happened. They were able to move around on the outside and kind of do what they wanted. Right? Like they really won the 50-50 balls turned into 70-30 balls for Wake Forest. That's what happened. And they did it over and over and over again. Sam Hartman, 20 out of 29, 337 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Like that Clemson secondary had some issues. Just major league issues. So it's very, very interesting what went on in this. DJ Uiagalelei, 26 out of 41 for 371 yards and 5 touchdowns. So just a great day for both quarterbacks. Absolutely great day for both quarterbacks. I was happy. I was excited for DJ because that's what you've been looking for out of him. And it's not like he had, great throw after great throw. But that's what he did, right? So it was Will Shipley, 20 carries for 104 yards. I really thought that they would ride him more. But when it came down to it, I mean, they only averaged 4.2 yards per play, yards per rush, excuse me. As far as yards per play, I mean, they had 6.5 and Wake had 6.6. So, yeah, it was tricky. It was a weird game, but you look at, the win probability just shifting back and forth. And I'll tell you, as crazy as that is, as bad as my handicap was on this game, if Clemson had gotten that 2-point conversion in overtime, I cover the 7. So I was this close to being 6-1 on the day instead of 3-1 on the BetUS College Football Show. Just absurd. Absolutely absurd. All right. We're going to hit on Texas Tech and Texas right after this. Let's check out some things you should know about.
College football is back, and BetUS TV has you covered. Every Tuesday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we've got expert game analysis to help you make informed decisions before kickoff, only on the BetUS TV College Football channel.
Visit winningcureseverything.com to find everything you need to know about us, including full shows in video or podcast form, gambling picks, merch, the gear we use, and more.
If you want more content from me, Gary, visit BetUSTV.com. I host the How to Gamble on Sports show, and from August through January, the BetUS College Football Show. You can subscribe to both on YouTube.
If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or whatever's your favorite podcast app. And if your app allows it, leave a 5-star written review.
Visit the Winning Cures Everything web store to get all kinds of football shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and more. Visit winningcureseverything.com/store to see what all we've added.
And now, back to the show. All right, Texas Tech and Texas. Now, we have talked about this multiple times, about which version of Texas are we going to get here. 82 Atlantic jumps in. Great win for Texas Tech, especially since UT might never return to Lubbock. That is a valid point. This was the last one. And I think you're going to see this with Oklahoma and Texas multiple times this year. From what I can tell, people are fired up when they come to their place because it ain't that long before the Longhorns and the Sooners head over to the SEC. I've said this over and over and over again, right? Donovan Smith is maybe the most high variance player that you have in the country. With that Zach Kittley offense and what they are doing with him, they did not plan on him even being the starter. Like, Tyler Shuck was the starter. He is the better passer. And yet, you look at this, and just the stats were mind-blowing. Smith ran 15 times for 42 yards. That is not usual, right? Typically, he has more yards, etc. So Texas was able to key in on him. But passing, 38 out of 56 for 331 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, Texas was not able to get home on him and really make him uncomfortable. Like, he flung the ball around. It floored me when I saw what ended up happening at the end of this game. Texas only got into the red zone twice. They went 2 for 2. Texas Tech got there 6 times. They went 5 out of 6. Like, Texas didn't hold on to the football. They had 2 fumbles. Two turnovers, excuse me. One was an interception. Hudson Card, 20 out of 30, 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And this is the reason why Steve Sarkisian wanted Quinn Ewers to play, right? There's just not as much explosiveness from Hudson Card as there is with Quinn Ewers. And that's the bottom line. That's the way it goes. Xavier Worthy, only 3 catches for 50 yards, 1 touchdown. I think he may have gotten hurt in this game. I think he limped around at one point, so I didn't see anything official on it. But obviously that's going to hurt you when one of your most explosive players is out for the game or doesn't play well. How's that? He's not as useful. But yeah, this was a weird game to me when you look at win probability, when you look at just everything. The field position about even. Plays per drive. I mean, Texas Tech was able to sustain drives against that Texas defense. Like, how are you going to – how can you build this culture at Texas, right? And I know that we should be focusing on Texas Tech because they did amazing things. Obviously, Joey McGuire has really built up the culture in this place already. Like, they are fired up down there in a way that they haven't been in a long time. But at the end of the day, like, Texas has got to figure some things out because it does not get easier for them down the road, right? Yeah, I understand that they've already played Alabama. You got that one out of the way. You beat UTSA. You lose to Texas Tech. Well, now West Virginia comes in next week. Now you got Oklahoma coming in after that. Or you obviously play that in Dallas, but Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU, Kansas, Baylor. There's not an easy game left on the schedule. Like, people would have said that Texas Tech was the one that you had to win, even on the road. I'm telling you, the Big 12 is going to go nuts. 82 Atlantic jumps in. Was Tech coach using analytics to constantly go for it on fourth down? Yes. Yes, 100%. Joey McGuire has the book, and he goes by it. And I think it's smart. Like, obviously it's smart. Like, in a chance or in a game like that, you absolutely have to give yourself every opportunity to win, right? Looking at the team stats here, 6 out of 8 on fourth down. You're extending drives. Like, you're keeping the ball away from Texas in their explosive offense. Don't give Bijan Robinson more chances than you have to, right? But 6 out of 8, yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely he was using the book, and I can't fault him for it because you're already at a disadvantage when you are at Texas Tech, when you're going against Texas. Take every shot you can. Like, every opportunity that you don't go for it, that's an opportunity wasted. So, yeah, that was a big, big part of this game. But they trusted Donovan Smith. They let him cook. It was awesome. Like, I can't even begin to explain how big this is for Texas Tech and what they're trying to build there. So, we'll move on. What a fascinating game this was in the morning. Michigan 34, Maryland 27, and man, I didn't see this one coming. Especially when Michigan kicks off, there's a fumble, and then Michigan scores like 3 seconds into the game. Yeah, didn't see this one ending up coming down to just a touchdown, right? Especially considering that Michigan's offense, played relatively well. I thought that their defense did not look very good at all. When you look at the stats over at Game on Paper, the EPA per play, like Maryland was pretty good there. Success rate, 79th percentile yesterday, 48% success rate for Maryland. Yards per play, 5.44. Like, they were able to have success against Michigan. That doesn't bode well. Now, obviously, Michigan is going to play Iowa next week, so they have time to get things figured out. But I'm trying to figure out what the narrative is here. Are we looking at a Maryland team that is rapidly improving, or has Michigan come back down, right? And obviously, I think that Michigan is coming back down a little bit because, I mean, last year was just, that's so tough to attain again. But when you look at it, I mean, it's pretty crazy that this is a team that Michigan has just throttled year after year after year. Does it mean that Michigan, who was up here, is coming back down a level? Or that Maryland, who was down here, is coming up a level? Like, is Maryland going to be competing with Penn State? And et cetera, et cetera. Mick Stevens jumps in. You can bet that Texas is not returning to Lubbock. Agreed. Like, there are some games that they might try and find a way to schedule. Lubbock ain't going to be one of them. You can forget that. But as far as Michigan goes, I look at J.J. McCarthy, and I wonder how much of this was like just a shock to the system of, hey, we're actually playing an actual FBS football team, like a competent team that actually has threats. I wonder if that's part of it. Because this was different. This was weird. So, I mean, I look at this and I do question a few things, right? I do question, like, why were they not able to put up more points? Or why was their defense not able to get a stop when they needed to? Like, it was just a strange overall day because they trade field goals, and it's just back and forth early. 82 Atlantic, do you think Michigan got complacent for playing 3 preseason games in non-con? Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying is when you played teams that did not offer any kind of threat, right? It was Hawaii, UConn, and I forget the other one, but Colorado State. 3 of the worst teams in FBS this year. There was never a chance that you were going to lose those games. And I don't know that it's necessarily complacency, is that you're now seeing something that you haven't seen, right? The only thing close to this is what you actually see in practice. In practice, it's just not quite the same. Trevor Shackelford, a lot of missed holding calls in Maryland, on Maryland in that game. Made me laugh when they showed the 0 penalties graphic. But always, Terps got a good offense. JJ made a ton of mistakes. I think just surviving this one is good, right? JJ McCarthy is still learning on the job. He's still figuring this thing out. So I don't know that I don't know that this is a bad situation. I think next week against Iowa is going to be very interesting for McCarthy in that defense. JJ McCarthy's offense against that Iowa defense. Iowa's defense is legit. They are absolutely legit. They can bait you into stuff that you don't want to do. We're going to see if he throws a bunch of picks, etc., because that could get very questionable very quickly. 18 out of 26 for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns for JJ. I mean, it wasn't awful. Talia Tagovailoa, 2 interceptions in the game. Like, you knew that was you knew that was coming because he does believe that he can thread the needle on every single throw, like every single one of them. But yeah, that was just a weird game because I expected Michigan to blow them out of the water, and they were not able to do that at all. All right, moving along. USC 17, Oregon State 14. And if you were able to watch this, well, that means you have a weird cable plan, my friends, because I could not get this one anywhere. I followed along on Twitter just like everybody else, and then I had to go back and watch replays and highlights, and I was able to follow along on the play-by-play to get an idea of what went on. And what went on here is that USC, again, was the benefactor of multiple turnovers. You look at the team stats here. 4 turnovers, and it was 4 interceptions from Nolan. I mean, this is a guy that does not turn the football over. And yet they were able to get turnovers out of him. Like, I don't understand it. 17 out of 29, 167 yards, and 4 interceptions. And it's not like Caleb Williams played well. 16 out of 36, 1 touchdown, 180 yards. Like, Travis Dye saved him with his running. 19 carries, 133 yards. Other than that, I mean, these team stats are crazy. 357 yards for USC, 320 for Oregon State. I expected not immaculate offenses, but really efficient offenses, because I did not think either of these defenses was very good. And yet both of the defenses showed up pretty well. And USC, I think they're plus 14 on the season in turnover margin with no giveaways. How long can this possibly continue? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Third down efficiency. I mean, the USC, 9 out of 18, even with not great yardage, they were still able to be efficient. 2 out of 3 on 4th down. Okay. Like, it's just weird. Like, everything about this was strange to me. Just strange. Because I expected a lot more points. This was 7-3 at the half. It was 7-3 heading into the 4th quarter. Somebody knows something, I guess. I don't know nothing about this. I cannot figure it out. But you look at the win probability, I mean, it is just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The expected points is all over the place. And neither team played like particularly well. And yet USC comes out with another win, looking at who they have next. And this is why Fox or ESPN did not pick up this game. You got Arizona State next, which they'll win that game. Washington State after that, Utah, Arizona could be interesting, I guess. UCLA is later on down the line. Notre Dame. Like, Fox and ESPN want to be able to show USC as much as possible heading down the stretch because I think USC will be undefeated going to Utah. I mean, they get Washington State at home. They don't have to go to the Palouse. So that's certainly something. Just a weird game. I mean, they found a way to, as it says here, USC grinds out comeback victory. Like, Jordan Addison and Caleb Williams and Mario Williams, I mean, just all of them are fantastic. They're fantastic football players. You leave them in a game too long, they're going to find a way to come back. Just crazy. Just crazy. Let's do this one. Hey, Miami, what are you guys doing? I understand you went to A&M last week, but this is not what we expected. Mario Cristobal, just bananas. Middle Tennessee wins this game, 45-31. It was 24-10 at the half, and every time Miami tried to answer, every time they tried to get something going, Middle Tennessee found a way to come back. And I mean, Cunningham was the dude at quarterback. 16 completions out of 25 attempts for 408 yards. They had a 98-yard pass, a 69-yard pass, an 89-yard pass. Just insane. Insane. 82 Atlantic jumps in. USC is prone to random upset when they are highly ranked, like they've been for the past decade. Yeah, I think this team's a little different, though. Just a little different. Now, Miami, same thing. When they are ranked, they are prone to an upset. I did not think it would come at the hands of Middle Tennessee State. Or Middle Tennessee. I think they got rid of the state. I don't remember. Regardless, you look at these numbers. Tyler Van Dyke. Like, they have got this guy just all kinds of confused. He is not playing the same way that he did last year. 16 out of 32 passing for 138 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. They bring in Jake Garcia, 10 out of 19 for 169 yards. At least he didn't throw any picks. But the biggest problem that I had in this game was 38 rushes for 60 yards. That's 1.6 yards per clip against Middle Tennessee. When you are Miami, I don't understand. Like, I understand Middle Tennessee only running for 2.8 yards a clip. I don't understand Miami. How does this happen? Like, Miami has 3 turnovers in the game. Middle Tennessee has 1. You look at the efficiency. Middle Tennessee was only 3 out of 12 on third down. It was nothing crazy. Do you think Cristobal should start Jake Garcia against UNC? At this point, they might, because Tyler Van Dyke is not getting it done. But I wonder how much of that is him trying to figure out Gaddis's offense, right? And how much of it is actually Gaddis's offense, and how much is Cristobal wanting to be insanely conservative? That's the biggest question here. So this is going to be a weird situation going forward, because Tyler Van Dyke, I mean, he was all ACC. He was expected to be like an NFL draft pick, and we have problems now with this bunch. I mean, this is not a situation that I'm sure Miami wants to be in, because you're done with your non-conference now. You know, North Carolina at Virginia Tech, that defense is they got some ideas. Duke is not bad. At Virginia, they should win that. Florida State, I mean, there's still games on the schedule that they can win, regardless of who plays quarterback. But they have some problems. They have some issues. Let's hit on, we're reaching on 40 minutes. We're going to hit on Baylor and Iowa State right after this. Let's check out some things you should know about.
Follow the show on Twitter at Winning Cures, and you can follow Gary at Gary WCE. You can also follow on Facebook.
Got your own podcast or web show? Looking to start one? Or you're just curious how we look and sound so good? Well, we've got all the gear that we use listed on our gear page on the website. And if you order using our links, you'll be supporting the show too.
Subscribe on YouTube to get not only full Winning Cures Everything shows, but individual segments and other goodies as well. We're over 6,000 subscribers, and our goal by the end of the year is 7,500.
If you're interested in advertising on a show that reaches over 80,000 unique football fans per month during the season, send an email to Gary@winningcureseverything.com, and we'll put together a plan that best fits you or your business. And now, back to the show. All right, Baylor 31, Iowa State 24, and I'm not going to call it a screw job, but the officiating was questionable in this game. I think that's the easiest way that we can put that, right? Started out weird. You got targeting calls that, it was just a picture-perfect tackle. You just had weird things happen in this ballgame. And Baylor, to their credit, was able to capitalize, and they took advantage of the situation, and they were able to get a win. Iowa State, in this spot, this is the Iowa State that we've kind of grown accustomed to, right? 2 turnovers in this game. You look at the play-by-play. Here, we're going to pull it up on the screen for you. You look at this, and interception that did not lead to points, but then you have an interception that did lead to points. Made it 31-14, and then they were able to fight their way back. But at that point, it was too little too late, right? Like Baylor, as far as the score goes, basically dominated this game. It was rough to watch because we could have had Iowa State and Kansas undefeated next week, and I really thought that game day might go there. And instead, game day is going to NC State and Clemson, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of tired of Clemson at this point. Hunter Decker's 23 out of 36, 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Brock, 14 carries for 73 yards. Baylor able to run the ball, 42 carries for 123 yards. Not bad. Blake Shapen was the surprise of the day to me. 19 out of 26, 238 yards, 3 touchdowns. He didn't miss much. He was pretty good in this spot. And when you go back and look at the game seemed closer than it really was for a long time until Baylor was able to take advantage and go up, 31 to 14 late. But it felt pretty even. Yards per drive, there was a 8-yard difference. Iowa State 48, Baylor 54. Plays per drive, pretty even, both a little over 8. This was, not bad. Not a bad game at all. I think Iowa State is better than what they showed, most certainly. But Baylor found a way to get it done, and cheers to them for getting a road win after losing to BYU a couple of weeks ago. They come out and they actually trust Shapen in big-time spots, and that was important. Just incredibly important. So props to them for getting that thing done because, man, it could have been a long road to hoe if they had not finished this one off. Baylor coming up next, Oklahoma State next week, at West Virginia. Then you got Kansas, at Texas Tech, at Oklahoma. I'm telling you, the Big 12 is just a disaster for everybody this year. It is, these are really good football teams, and they are going to be just beating each other senseless week after week after week, and I cannot wait to watch this because every week is going to be fantastic games. I've got no idea who I should be betting on or any of that right now because these teams are nuts, absolutely nuts. So. Props to Baylor for getting that done. Good gracious. That was something else. Staying in the Big 12. Hey, you know what? We got to talk about them. Why not just bring it on up? Kansas. Kansas gets a big-time win, 35-27 over Duke. And this one, let's just be real here. Jalen Daniels is the guy. He's the dude. There's nothing that I can say that will ever be enough to explain how awesome this guy is at football. 19 out of 23 for 324 yards and 4 touchdowns. He made a throw at the end of the first half where he looked like he was scrambling. And he had a guy that was running, not a fade route, but he was running into the end zone. And Jalen Daniels is backing up, and his feet are not even close to set. And this dude had the arm strength and the accuracy to put that thing right on the money in the corner of the end zone, where his guy could reach out in stride and catch the football. It was one of the most perfect throws that I have ever seen, and I immediately knew that my Duke plus 7.5 that I gave out on the BetUS College Football Show was donezo, because there's no stopping this guy. My reasoning for my handicap was Houston and West Virginia and Tennessee Tech. When they went up against Jalen Daniels, they did not have anything that could slow down the rushing game of Kansas, right? The zone running scheme that Lance Leipold is running here. The RPO stuff, just all the crazy motions and the jet sweeps and the blah, 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 all that stuff, nobody had been able to defend it. So Jalen Daniels never had to worry as far as passing the football, right? It wasn't any big deal because they were going to be able to run it anyway, right? Like, he could sit back because people would key in so much on the run that he'd be able to find wide open guys anyway. This was a different deal. This was completely different because Jalen Daniels can absolutely read the field. He can throw the football. In this game, 11 attempts rushing for 83 yards. Yes, that's still really, really good. I get that. But when I look at it, it lets me know that he was not so focused on running the football. He just took what the defense gave him, right? They still had 39 carries for 204 yards. They averaged over 5 yards a carry, did Kansas. So Duke did a pretty decent job. But man, this offense is something else. And where I thought, Kansas, they're going to hit their win total over, and I think they're going to be a really competitive team, but they're not quite there yet. I was wrong. When you've got the quarterback, you are competitive as far as the conference goes. You have a chance in every single game. There's not a single game on this schedule that Kansas plays that I don't think they got a shot to win. Not a single one. They play Iowa State this week at home. They play TCU after that. They play Oklahoma. They play at Baylor. They play Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Texas, Kansas State. I think they can win. They can win all of them. Now, I'm not predicting that they win all of them, but there's not one that they can't win. As long as you got the quarterback, you are going to be successful. And they got that dude. I mean, Jalen Daniels is just something else. I can't even explain it. Looking at the box score, by the way, little props to Duke. Of course, Riley Leonard has just been awesome this year. 24 out of 35 for 324 yards and 1 touchdown. He also had 10 carries for 54 yards. He was their leading rusher as well. Duke played well, and yet they were not enough against Kansas at all. They had a shot late. You look at the play-by-play here, of course. And by the way, everybody that said that Kansas did get in the end zone on that first drive, etc., I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I know it was a bad spot, whatever. That was still a Duke stop. They did a pretty good job of getting that stop there. So, but looking at it, you go down, and I mean, it is 28-13, then it's 28-20, and then it's 35-20. Every time Duke responded, Kansas was able to respond as well. This is how close we were, right? It's 35-27. Duke has the ball, and it is 4th and 7 at the Kansas 31. So we're that close to maybe going to overtime in this thing. Who knows? Who knows what could have happened? But regardless, Kansas finds a way to get it done again. When you got the quarterback, you got a shot in every game. You can win every game on that schedule. Now, let's move along. We're going to hit just a few more right quick. We won't spend as long on these, but I did want to make sure that I hit them. Oregon, 44, Washington State, 41. Okay. This was weird. This was so weird. This was a 17-9 game? 17-9 at the half. And that was because of a Bo Nix interception, returned for a touchdown, and in the second half, not just the second half, in the fourth quarter, Oregon went crazy. I mean, just absolutely crazy. You move along, second half, and Oregon comes out, scores a touchdown. Washington State, of course, responds 20-15. Well, then Washington State drives down the field and puts up 27-15. And then it gets crazy. Oregon with a 10-play, 84-yard drive for a touchdown to make it 27-22. Washington State then returns fire a couple drives later, 12 plays, 81 yards, 34-22. And it gets nuts because Oregon drives back down the field, 11 plays, 75 yards. Washington State has to punt. Oregon goes up 37-34. Then you have a pick six return. And then Washington State comes back down and scores to make it 44-41. It was nuts. Bo Nix in this game. I mean, just insane. 33 out of 44, 428 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have the one pick six, right? Cam Ward, 37 out of 48 for 375 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. This was a perfect back and forth. And Oregon, it took Kenny Dillingham's offense that long to figure out how to attack this Washington State defense. But once they figured it out, that was all she wrote. There was nothing Washington State was going to be able to do offensively to be able to hang with them because Oregon got this thing moving, absolutely moving. 32 carries, 178 yards on the ground, but receiving, 446 yards receiving. I mean, just Bo Nix figured out exactly what to do here. This was not one of those crazy Bo Nix run-around games. He had 6 carries for 30 yards in this. I mean, just crazy. Johnny Cash jumps in. Johnny Cash, woo pig sue. He said, fire Pittman, garbage coach. There was some crazy stuff that happened in the game. Go back to the early part. I talked about it. 82 Atlantic. Bo Nix finally won a game on the road. I mean, he's won games on the road. It's just that before this game, when he goes on the road or to a neutral site, he had 16 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. But at home, he had 30 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. So the road-home splits were crazy. This was nuts. I mean, just absolutely nuts. So props to Oregon for getting it done. Props to Washington State for putting up a fight for sure, and for getting me the cover on 3 Dog Thursday. But crazy. I mean, just a nuts performance from both sides. And this is why people take a lot of like first half unders and stuff like that, is because in the fourth quarter things can get haywire. I mean, it was 29-14 in the fourth quarter. Like fourth quarter alone. I mean, just crazy. All right, let's hit on a few more right quick. Just real, basic stuff. I'm not planning on clipping these or anything like that. So, Auburn, 17-14. Missouri, dropping the football on the way into the end zone in overtime for what would have been a win and likely a Brian Harsin firing. Okay. Auburn did not look good. They scored 14 points in the first quarter and then did not score again until they kicked a field goal in overtime. And honestly, they missed the first field goal in overtime, and Missouri was offsides. So they got to try it again, and then they made it. With Missouri, of course, they miss a field goal at the end of regulation from like 29 yards out. It's like neither team wanted to win this game. You had multiple opportunities for both of them, and nobody wanted to win it. So I could not, for the life of me, understand what either side was doing. Holy Sal jumps in. What a bad game. It was putrid. It was putrid. If you look at the team stats, 312 yards of offense for Missouri, 217 for Auburn. Like, Robbie Ashford is not the answer at all. And don't get me wrong, I know TJ Finley was out for this game, but man, Zach Calzada is injured. Like, it's not good. It is not good. Cook for Missouri, I mean, I don't think he's the answer either. Pete, by the way, the running back for Missouri, 20 carries, 110 yards. I was a little shocked. A little bit shocked. Johnny Cash Woo Pig Sui said, done with this team. Done with this team until we get a coach that knows football. Let's go Hogs in basketball. Man, the Arkansas fans giving it rough to Sam Pittman. He has rebuilt that program, and this guy is not happy. I understand your pain, but Arkansas football only wins 5 games. And it is a tough schedule. We shall see. As far as Auburn goes, Robbie Ashford, 15 carries for 46 yards. Tank Bigsby, 19 carries for 44 yards. If Missouri can key in if they can key in and stop Tank Bigsby, then what are the rest of the teams in the SEC going to do? Like for Auburn, it does not get easier. I know that they've got 3 wins now. They're 3-1 as it sits. You got LSU coming into town. You got Georgia. You got Ole Miss. After that, Arkansas, Mississippi State, A&M, Western Kentucky is not bad. And then you play at Alabama. Like, this is going to get ugly. Because if you can't get Tank Bigsby going, you have no passing offense. I love this. Holy Sal. Zach Calzada hurt himself playing wiffle ball is the rumor. Boy, wouldn't that just be... If we could have a 30 for 30 on the Harsin career, just good gracious. Ugh. All right, so let's take a stab at... Let's take a stab at this one. TCU, the battle for the Iron Skillet. TCU 42, SMU 34, and this went back and forth more than I thought it would. This was just a crazy ball game. You look at the team stats, 487 yards total offense for TCU, 476 for SMU. SMU was 4 out of 4 on 4th down. I mean, Holy Sal jumps in. I can see Auburn not winning again. Yeah. Trevor Shackelford, when I saw Auburn go up 14-0, I said game over Mizzou, and I didn't switch back until Mizzou missed that last second field goal. Yeah, I really thought that Auburn was just going to run away with it, but did not happen. As far as TCU goes, Max Duggan felt like he was going to run away with this thing. 22 out of 29 passing, 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 10 carries rushing for negative 11 yards. I did not expect that. Miller for TCU, 17 carries for 142 yards and 1 touchdown. DeMarcado, I hope I say that right, 6 carries for 64 yards. Now, one of those was a 63-yarder, so obviously this is in context. But they had just explosive plays, like an 80-yard pass, 22-yard, 15, 18, 13, 12, 19. Everybody had a long pass reception for TCU. And it was kind of the same thing for SMU. Like, Rhett Lashley was able to figure out some things eventually because TCU was up 28-14 at the half, and this thing got to be a little bit closer here. But TCU, like, they're explosive. Sonny Dykes has figured some things out there, and they were able to do some things defensively that they weren't able to do last year. It's like TCU is actually putting forth a little bit of effort, for sure. So it's weird. It's weird, but it was a fun game. It was a fun game for sure. Moving along, let's see. Yes, Minnesota 34 and Michigan State 7. This one, guys, this is brutal. This is brutal. Which, by the way, 82 Atlantic jumps in. I'm sure Boise will take Harsin back with open arms. Yeah, because it ain't going well for Andy Avalos at all. I didn't have that to talk about on here, but man. Looking at the team stats here for Michigan State and Minnesota, this is just as bad as it gets. If you're Michigan State, 240 yards of offense, that's one thing, because that was routine under Mike D'Antonio. Total yards for Minnesota, though, is 508. They had 240 yards rushing. They averaged 5 yards a clip on 48 rushing attempts. Michigan State turned the ball over 3 times. Like, and 2 of them were Peyton Thorne. Like, this ain't going to get good for Michigan State, I don't believe. I don't think the schedule does not lend itself to a lot of opportunities. But when you are allowing Tanner Morgan to complete 23 out of 26 passes for 268 yards and 3 touchdowns without Chris Altman-Bell, that's when it gets a little dicey. That Michigan State defense is not good. Not good. looking at what they've got coming up, Maryland, Ohio State, Wisconsin, at Michigan, at Illinois, Illinois' defense can stop them. You got Rutgers and Indiana in there, should be able to win those. But you're going on the road to Maryland. Like, we'll see about that passing offense. Double O'Neal jumps in. I still haven't gotten over it. Fire Tim Plow. Yeah. This could get really bad for Michigan State. Maybe they compete with Wisconsin. Maybe they can beat Maryland, and then you got Rutgers and Illinois. Or Rutgers and Indiana, because I don't know that they can beat Illinois. I mean, maybe you can get to 6 wins. But that's a far cry from the 11-2 last year, right? I mean, that is rough. Yeah, that's Holy Sal jumps in. They get Maryland next week who can throw. Yeah, when that defense can't stop the pass against Minnesota, yeah, this is going to get tricky. It's going to get real tricky. Last one that I wanted to toss on here was James Madison and App State. App State was up 28-10 at the half. And this looked like they were going to run away with this thing, right? James Madison, first year in FBS, no real opportunity to build up just yet. It's going to take them some time. Nope, this was the letdown spot of all letdown spots. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. You look at the box score on what happened. Todd Centillo, 16 out of 28, 204 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then the running game, 46 carries, 172 yards. But the biggest part was App State. 34 rushes for 63 yards total. Now, they had 2 touchdowns, but Peoples and Newell couldn't do anything. Chase Bryce was 17 out of 28 for 2 touchdowns and a pick. Only 235 yards. You look at this, it makes zero sense, but I think James Madison is really, really good this year. Like, they could end up winning the Sun Belt in their first year in the FBS. How incredible is that? I mean, this story is just nuts. Just crazy. Just crazy. When you look at what actually ended up happening. I mean, they held App State scoreless in the second half. Just nuts. Just nuts. All right. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I appreciate y'all being around because, man, I've still got some things that I got to catch up on from what happened yesterday. But another exciting, fantastic week of football games. I can't wait for week 5. I mean, we've got some bonkers matchups. We've got teams that we did not expect to have losses. It's going to be we're defining the season every single week. Every week. This is going to be so much fun. Good Lord. But yes, don't forget the BetUS College Football Show, of course, is on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I will be back here on Winning Cures Everything at 6 p.m. on Tuesday night. Let's see. Holy Sal, JMU can't win it, though. They can't play in the championship game. Yeah, no, agreed. As far as James Madison, I'm saying, like, for them to actually, in the standings, have won the Sun Belt, then that would be incredible. Right? I mean, just bonkers. First year in FBS. I mean, it's crazy. So, yes. Let's see. They did fire him. Who? They fired who? Who am I missing? Hold on. Let me dive in. Let me see if there's any breaking news. Hold on. Was it Tim? Did they fire Tim? Oh, yeah. They sure did. I didn't realize that. Yeah, Boise. Yeah, Boise fired the offensive coordinator. Huh. Dirk Cutter is the OC for the remainder of the season. How interesting. I didn't realize that happened yesterday. All right, so regardless. Yes, is 82 Atlantic. Is Georgia Tech firing the coach? The board, yeah, they're having a meeting on Monday, which is strange. If you go and look at the, let me see what the schedule looks like. I forget who Georgia Tech has next week. Not that it necessarily matters, but regardless, looking at the Georgia Tech schedule, Let's see. They're playing at Pittsburgh this week. Yeah, this one's going to be. I think this one's done. I think it's done. I think they're gonna get rid of Jeff Collins probably on Monday. But that's that they've called an emergency meeting. I saw Stephen Godfrey talk about that earlier. So, and he's as tied in as anybody. But the official tweet is, let's see. That wasn't Godfrey that was talking about it, I don't think. I missed it. Either way, they did call an emergency meeting on Monday. So, looks like that's about it for Jeff Collins. Auburn, that probably would have been it had they lost to Missouri. We're going to have more coaching changes sooner rather than later for whatever reason. All right, so finally, we're going to close it out. WinningCuresEverything.com is the website. Make sure and enter the contest. I will have the new games up by this evening, so make sure that you go and check those out. And along with that, BetUS College Football Show on Tuesday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and another Winning Cures Everything shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Going to be a good time. Make sure that you are signed up everywhere you need to sign up. Subscribe. Like the video for me, if you would so kindly. Share it out. Tell your friends about it. All that good stuff. But for now, we're going to dive out of here. We're trying to make these not as long on Sundays, but I appreciate you guys for being here. I appreciate you for always being here and supporting the show. We try and have a good time with it. Hopefully you guys do as well. With that said, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And hopefully, all of your tickets cash this week. Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. And make sure to leave a nice 5-star review. You can follow Gary on Twitter at GaryWCE. And the show is at Winning Cures. Be sure to check out the merch in our web store and share